My name is Arnis Timdars. I'm from Latvia. I'm very happy to see you here. But I, as a moderator, will be speaking Russian. У нас удивительно хорошие переводчики, поэтому был бы совсем грех не воспользоваться их возможностью, тем более друг друга понимаем. Итак, наш круглый стол посвящен теме, которую уже задала наш президент. Тамара, здравствуйте. Очень рад видеть вас. Как же сохранить и, может быть, даже избирателей, тем более, что наши молодые избиратели в основном сидят в своих гаджетах. И взрослое поколение, по-моему, уже и не отстает от этого. О порядке нашего круглого стола. У нас будут два спикера. Каждый у них будет делать презентацию по 20 минут. Так планируем, и на вопросы и ответы тоже оставить 10 минут по каждого. И, пожалуйста, в конце не расходитесь. Я буду предоставлять слово нашему генеральному секретарю, господину Желтову, который, видимо, будет нас приглашать на кофе, возможно, на традиционное фотографирование, как я видел по плану, ну и, конечно, посетить выставку. Итак, первый наш докладчик, господин Хасан Фисей, старший сотрудник по избирательным политическим вопросам, отдел помощи в проведении выборов, департамент по политическим вопросам и вопросам мирного строительства Организации Объединенных Наций. Имеет немалый, на самом деле, большой срок опыта в проведении и организации выборов, как в международных институциях, как при проведении, как и в офисе работал, и у себя на родине работал, непосредственно проведением выборов. Вот, пожалуйста, предоставляю вам слово, господин Хасан. 20 минут ваших.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Could I ask colleagues to upload my presentation, if they don't mind, from their side, and I'll continue to regulate it here. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and let me begin. Thanks for that introduction, and let me begin by expressing deepest gratitude to the Association of European Election Officials for inviting the United Nations to the 29th annual conference. Would have actually loved to be there, but we're still pleased to participate remotely. Myself and my colleague Tamara, representing the United Nations Electoral Assistance Division. So it's a pleasure to be here to join you in this conference. Sorry. My presentation basically would focus on how to keep trust in elections, and mainly looking at the role of the EMB. And because as the United Nations, we focus on providing electoral assistance to member states, I would actually talk mainly from a policy perspective. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So can we move on to the next slide, please? Before moving forward, I would like to give a quick overview of what the United Nations does in terms of providing assistance to member states. The United Nations only provide assistance and engage with member states at the specific request of member states or based on the Security Council or General Assembly mandates. And We do provide various forms of assistance to member states, and technical assistance is by far the most common type of assistance we provide. And in providing technical assistance, we do engage with various member states, supporting electoral management bodies in conducting elections and helping them out with their communication. So that is one key area of our engagement, working with various EMBs around the world, providing assistance in their electoral processes. We also provide other types of assistance. We do observation, certification, and supervision, but all of this is based on a Security Council or General Assembly mandate. And on average, the UN does receive around 25 requests from member states in every given year. And currently we do support over 52 member states in conducting their elections, majority of which are on the African continent. But also we do have assistance projects all around the world. We also do support through our Good Offices role at the request of member states, Good Offices role through special representatives of the Secretary General and other high officials. Next slide, please. And just to give a quick overview of our framework, we do have the Under-Secretary General for the Department of Political and Peace-Building Affairs, who actually is the system-wide focal point within the UN, who coordinates all UN electoral assistance to ensure that the entire UN can support a member state in their elections when requested. And the role of the focal point is also to develop policies for the entire UN system to look at requests from member states. And our office, the Electoral Assistance Division, do support the focal point in carrying out her role. And there are others too, like most of you are familiar with UNDP, who is the main implementer of electoral assistance in the field. And many other actors do involve UN Women. The Office of Human Rights are also involved in providing assistance to member states at the ground level. So us in New York here, we basically focus on developing policies for the entire UN system, coordinating the system in providing assistance to specific member states. Next slide, please. These are some of the core principles that actually guide our engagement with various member states, including the EMBs. Respect for national sovereignty is a key principle that guide our interaction with various member states. We also focus on respect for human rights, a non-prescriptive kind of assistance we provide to various member states. But also a key principle in our assistance is to promote inclusiveness, including the participation of women and marginalized groups. So that's a key principle for the UN when we engage with various member states. And I think your topic today about external communication of the EMB really touches on that, ensuring that the EMBs are actually able to reach out to various stakeholders, and we emphasize our engagements with member states to focus on communicating to women and other marginalized groups. Next slide, please. And these are also some key features that actually guide our work. And you could see that in our engagement with various member states, we try to combine technical assistance and political engagement because elections are highly political events, and it's not just technical assistance, but we also combine various forms of political engagement in supporting member states. And the Secretary General of the UN has actually said on multiple occasions that the true measure of an election is when it engenders broad public confidence and trust in the outcome. So this is the essence of an election. And in doing so, citizens should actually have trust in the process, and that the process actually reflects their will And this is a key priority for the UN in our engagement, building trust in electoral processes. And I think the electoral management body play a key role in building this trust in a process. Next slide, please. There's always this discussion about the technical quality of an election and the acceptance of the results. We do believe that elections, the quality of an election is important, and this is where the electoral management body play a key role. The professionalism of the electoral management body, the communication of the electoral management body with various stakeholders, but also adherence to international principles and norms are very important. But from our experience, this has not been sufficient. It's not a straightforward relationship between the technical quality of an election and acceptance of the results. So that is why we always focus on building confidence in the process, focusing on the political context in which the elections are happening. What are the stakes involved in the elections? Is it a winner-take-all system? Is it the first election a country is going through? These are all important considerations that actually the UN focuses on when we engage with various member states. And like I said, the electoral management body do play a key role in building trust in every system. And but not only the electoral management bodies, in terms of building trust, we also focus our engagement, and we also emphasize the important role played by political leaders and candidates. EMBs can perform as well as they can, but at the end of the day, political leaders do bear responsibility, being role models in terms of encouraging peaceful acceptance of results. So we see a key role for EMBs in building trust in an election, but also there's a need for other stakeholders like political parties, candidates to also engage and share the responsibility when it comes to peaceful election, but also when it comes to communicating to voters and the general populace. Next slide, please. So some of the things we think the EMB can do in building trust, again, the EMB needs to systematically involve, communicate and involve stakeholders right from the start of the process. It's almost self-evident that EMBs should communicate, but in some of the contexts we've actually operating, we've noticed that not all EMBs are willing to engage with various stakeholders right from the commencement of the process. And for us, this is an important consideration, and we focus on EMBs engaging right from the start, communicating with various stakeholders and the voters. We also, in our engagement with EMBs, we see there is a need. Their communication strategies should actually target women that are largely underrepresented in various settings. EMBs should focus on that, and they could use various means. I think Chair and President actually talked about that in their opening, about various methods of communication, both traditional. But again, the use of technology can actually improve various electoral processes, but there are challenges that do come with the use of technology, and EMBs have to be very mindful of these challenges. The same with internet and social media. EMBs should be very much aware of the challenges and opportunities that internet and social media presents. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, the internet and social media presents a great opportunity for EMBs to communicate their messages. Some EMBs will shy away from getting engaged because they feel overwhelmed with already conducting an electoral process. But there are great opportunities with the use of internet and social media. But also EMBs should be very mindful of the challenges that do come. It can be a tool for the promotion of disinformation, manipulation, and hate speech. But EMBs can use internet and social media to communicate information and be able to use it as a tool to correct information when the information being disseminated is not the right information according to their processes. There are also the challenge that comes with technology. EMBs can use technology. A lot of EMBs are introducing technology into their operations, enhancing their operations either through voter registration, results management, and various aspects of the process. But there is also the lingering challenge of cyber threats and cyber attacks to EMBs. And what we in our engagements, we've actually recommend to EMBs to actually develop a strategy to clearly inform voters and various stakeholders. Cooperation with social media companies is also very important in the age we operate in. There is a willingness on the part of many social media companies to cooperate with EMBs to be able to correct information and be able to use the platforms available for EMBs to reach out to voters. There's also the need to develop partnership with other state and non-state actors. EMBs alone cannot do it, particularly when it comes to cyber attacks. They need to cooperate with other state actors, and also non-state actors. Civil society can also be a useful partner in this engagement. Next slide, please. Again, we cannot talk about EMBs reaching out to voters, communicating without talking about how COVID has affected life generally. COVID has actually affected socioeconomic and political life, and many countries that have decided to proceed with elections during COVID face additional challenges. The EMBs will not only need to communicate on how they would improve the integrity of the electoral process, but also how they will make voters safe. I think previous speakers do highlight those important points that in the context of COVID, considerations need to be made as to how voters are safe, not only about the integrity of the process. And part of that responsibility is with the EMB to reach out to voters, also to poll workers to ensure that they are safe during the conduct of the operation. And there is an additional challenge for many EMBs these days to even have poll workers who tend to be vulnerable in some contexts where they rely on elderly population to staff their polling stations. The EMBs, again, this is mentioned before, needs to actually coordinate and communicate with healthcare professionals in planning for elections during COVID. And also, because of COVID, there may be changes in procedures, the way elections are conducted, and it is the responsibility of EMBs to communicate to voters so that they fully understand what the process would be like on election day. Next slide, please. Maybe just to conclude, some of the points I mentioned already, building trust in an electoral process is central to UN support to its member states. And in our engagement with various stakeholders, various EMBs, we emphasize this important role of building trust, communicating with various stakeholders, including the voters. And the EMB plays a key role in this, but we also note that political leaders and candidates do bear responsibility in building trust in an electoral process. And EMBs can use various forms of communication. Modern forms are always at their hands, but they need to be very mindful how these tools can be used for misinformation, but EMBs can take advantage to counter misinformation using internet and social media. And finally, internet and social media can be both a tool for informing voters, enhancing participation, but can also be used as for disinformation and hate speech. So with that, I'll end my presentation and again say thanks to ACEEO for inviting us to be part of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. На самом деле, большое спасибо за содержательную презентацию и за то, что вы даже сэкономили время. Видимо, есть возможность теперь нам задать вам вопросы. Уважаемые коллеги, кто желает задать вопрос, пожалуйста, дайте какой-то знак или напишите в чате. Есть даже два вопроса. Один from Армении и с России. Пожалуйста, господин Хасан, можете ли вы ответить на эти вопросы? First one is regarding the cooperation between MBC and social media companies. It's from Armenia, and as well as, can you provide more detailed info on best practice?
Okay. Yeah, I think I am able to see, the question on EMBs and social media companies. Yeah, thank you. Again, the point I was making there is social media companies, I think because of their corporate social responsibility, there is a greater willingness on the part of social media companies now to actually have such cooperations with EMBs. I think they also want to ensure that their platforms are used for factual information and not for disinformation and hate speech. So with this willingness on the part of social media companies, I think EMBs do have an opportunity to take advantage and develop such cooperation with these companies. I think I saw on your agenda tomorrow, the president of the Mexican Elections Commission, INE, would actually be speaking. And I was in Mexico in 2019, and we had a meeting with him. And he shared with us various examples of how their cooperation with social media went and how that actually helped them in terms of dealing with misinformation. They had an agreement, I think, with Twitter and Facebook to make sure that whatever misinformation is shared on their platform, they would be able to have an opportunity to say, correct that misinformation by providing a link to more factual information that would link viewers to the website of the Mexican Elections Commission. So there is that possibility. We're actually in discussion with Facebook, and we know they're also very willing to engage with various EMBs so that whenever there's misinformation, there could be third-party fact checkers. Once this information are checked that they are inaccurate, they would be able to take those information down and actually put in corrective information, or at least provide a link to relevant information on that. So I think there is an opportunity to cooperate with these entities. Sometimes they're difficult to reach, but once you're able to reach them, and we are also trying to facilitate that link between social media companies and EMBs where we can. The next, I hope that responds to the first question. The next one, I saw something on monitoring missions. UN monitoring missions. Again, there are several things we do. We actually do needs assessment missions. Whenever a country requests assistance, we have to deploy a team to speak to the EMB, political parties from both sides to understand what the needs are before we can conduct and assess any assistance to that country. So that's needs assessment. In terms of monitoring, maybe what you're looking at is UN monitoring elections. The UN would not necessarily monitor a country's election except we are invited to observe those elections. I think that somebody else talked about international observation mission. The UN, like I mentioned previously, does not involve in election observation outside of an explicit mandate from the Security Council or General Assembly. So whenever we will need to have a mandate to be able to observe. The last time I think the UN observed elections in Burundi in 2015. This is very rare for the UN to be. What we do is to work with EMBs to provide technical assistance to them, supporting them in conduct of the elections. And it becomes difficult once we engage in supporting EMBs to turn around and be observers again. But that's what we do, mostly technical assistance, not observation, except mandated by the General Assembly or Security Council. Yeah, I think the other one was on information on best practices. I think what we do, and I think part of our work is actually trying to collect as many practices from various countries around the world, and this we tend to share when requested by various member states. There are a lot of good practices, and I'm sure you will hear about many of them here during this conference that each member state undertakes, and we collect those through our institutional memory and tend to share a lot with various members. I think what we emphasize as a key practice to vote most of the EMBs we engage with is to sort of be consultative, be inclusive in your process, reach out to various stakeholders, not just at the middle of the process, but actually right from the very start of the process. We see this as vital to ensuring trust in the process and overall acceptance of the outcome. Thank you. I hope I've actually responded to the questions.
Thank you very much. Большое спасибо. Думается мне, что тут еще не все вопросы, конечно, еще остались, но возможно, что если останется время, потом в конце. А сейчас слово предоставляется нашему второму спикеру, представитель из Молдовы. Мне трудно его представить, так как я не знаю, кто его не знает. Корнелио Посад работает в молдовском ЦИКе, если не ошибаюсь, уже 13 лет, является заместителем отдела по работе с избирателями, с масс-медиами, всегда работает с иностранными наблюдателями, один из самых, по-моему, известных представителей в нашей ассоциации. Корнелио, если ты здесь, пожалуйста, слово за тобой.
Спасибо, Арнис, за презентацию. Здравствуйте всем. Hello to everyone. I'll do my presentation in English. First of all, I would like to say hello to everyone. It is an honor for us to participate at the 29th Annual ACEEEO Conference hosted by the Central Electoral Commission of Georgia. In this regard, I would like to extend our greetings to our Georgian colleagues and to the ACEEEO Secretariat for gathering us again. Of course, it's a pity that we didn't have a chance to be present personally in Georgia, as we all know their skills and capacities to organize and conduct great events, but we highly appreciate their professionalism and hospitality. But we are sure that in spite of all barriers and challenges created by the novel coronavirus, we'll succeed to have a great online conference, as we still have the opportunity to meet, to share our thoughts, experience, and best practices. Nowadays, information plays a crucial role in our world. It can help you to achieve your goals, but also it can damage you. In this regard, it's very important to identify and analyze your target groups, to prepare clear and correct messages, to adopt we needed the instruments, mechanisms to ensure the cooperation and communication with all electoral stakeholders. Okay. Can you see my presentation? According to Article 22 of the Electoral Code, Central Electoral Commission has the duty to implement civic education programs and developed activities on increasing voter awareness during the electoral period. Responsible for implementing of these activities are the Communication, Public Relations and Media Department and the Center for Continuous Electoral Training. Pillar number 1 from the strategic plan of the CEC for 2020-2023 is called Citizens-Oriented Services and includes such objectives as development of accessible, secured and innovative services, enhances the integrity and credibility in the electoral process by prevention, monitoring and control, and reducing the distance between voter and electoral bodies through increasing transparency in electoral process. The communication concept of the CEC for 2020 till 2023 includes 5 objectives related to internal and external communication, one of which refers to development of direct communication skills with citizens regardless of their location, spoken language, and other socio-economical features. It includes the following strategic activities that are developed in the annual plans. Plenary communication through web pages and social networks by using different multimedia formats, organizing public events to encourage direct communication with citizens, developing a set of informative and promotional materials regarding the institution activity, and conducting at least 3 thematic annual campaigns. The phenomena of absenteeism is characterized for all states with a democratic regime, but in case of countries going through a transition to democracy, it represents a form of passive protest of citizens against the government, but did not meet their electoral expectations. In this way, voters express their distrust in the political class, but also in the government. Therefore, the data received from the electoral authorities, which are impartial and apolitical, are viewed with skepticism and distrust. Young voters, especially first-time voters, represent one of the main target group of the CEC, as their level of interest for public life is lower, and their level of distrust is higher. They also need special attention because they don't have developed skills and motivation to engage in electoral process. On the chart, you can see the turnout of voters by age and by gender in the parliamentary elections and general local elections held in Moldova in 2019. In the bottom row is indicated the percentage share of group of citizens of a particular age out of a total number of voters that have participated in elections. Parallel to each column is calculated the share of voters out of the total number of citizens of a particular age included in the voters list. Of course, the most underrepresented groups are young people. To engage young people in electoral process largely and to mitigate the phenomena of absenteeism and mistrust by effectively promoting offline communication, over the last 2 years, Central Electoral Commission and Center for Continuous Electoral Training, with the support of development partners, have launched and conducted a series of civic education activities, and I'll present them. Analyzing the relevant communication component related to electoral knowledge of young people, we could take stock of both training activities and actions that involve the presentation and development of certain talents, skills, or hobbies. Thus, we managed to combine several components which help us better achieve our goals. Competition, creating information motivation products from perspective of a target group, education and information, motivating participants that their products will be used to inform or educate other voters. Filmmakers is an event where participants had been trained by professionals in the field of video production and elections in order to prepare personalized and innovative motivational spots for the elections. During What Art creative workshop, young people with drawing or graphic illustration skills took the responsibility to create motivation posters for the general local elections from 2019, but also had the possibility to learn more about participatory democracy. Another initiative where young people showed their creativity on electoral issues is InnoVoter, an IT electoral creative laboratory for young people. At the second edition of InnoVoter from last year, young people had the mission to create an interface for displaying data on the financing of political parties and electoral campaigns. Ensuring the transparency and accountability in terms of political financing has a major role for guaranteeing the trust in elections. Thus, starting with 2020, political parties and candidates from Moldova report directly on the CEC webpage, and this information can be viewed and analyzed by the public in an interactive and user-friendly manner. Applying an analytical and interactive learning methodology that allows participants to use new knowledge on the principles of democracy and political participation in a much broader context can be achieved through playing and contest. Such methods ensure a high interest from young people to get involved, to learn, and to compete. Electoral quizzes and debates are organized at the regional level, culminating with a national stage. This year, due to coronavirus challenges, Training Center organized the intellectual games What, Where, When online. Besides the activities mentioned above, every year CEC and CCET launch different types of contests. The most successful motivation slogan, the best motivational poster, democracy in my life essay, drama contest, or even vlogging contest. These activities are addressed to the high schools and gymnasium pupils, but also smaller pupils from kindergarten. The best works are awarded. The participants' works are displayed in exhibition, organized in the CEC premises, in parks, airports, other places, and of course, published in the printed materials. Online presence. National Youth Forum. It's another very important activity held by the CEC, organized already for the second time. The participant worked for 3 days in a row to organize simulation of electoral day as truthful as possible. The distribution in groups was random, so they could include young people from different political parties. Depending on the group they represented, political parties, electoral bodies, civil society, young people created political parties, registered their candidates, prepared and carried out electoral campaigns, participated in public debates, acted as members of electoral bodies, observers, media, or ordinary active citizens. More than 95% of young women and men expressed their willingness to be further involved in such kind of activities. The partnership established between CCET and the Association of Librarians of the Republic of Moldova resulted in 70 librarians participating in bridge seminars organized in 40 localities. The main goal of these trainings was to offer librarians the opportunity to learn modern methods of civic education and information to be used in their daily activities and to transform libraries in community-friendly spaces, information centers, where all citizens could find information on electoral processes. Also, last year, for the first time in the Republic of Moldova, teachers of civic education and representatives of the District Education Division attended the training on participation in the electoral process. The aim was enhancing their knowledge of participants in the field of civic electoral education, providing innovative teaching methods for topics related to civic education, and offering support materials for conducting such classes. A pilot activity implemented in 2018 and 2019 in around 80 schools was called Elections in School Councils. Under the guidance of the CECTT representatives, based on a pattern similar to the one used in the country parliamentary elections, pupils had the opportunity to learn basic on how a school election commission should be created, how information campaigns are developed, and what are the electoral process in the polling station. How is the votes counting process? And in the end, they elected their new council members for 1 year of school studying. We also have signed a mutual agreement with the Ministry of Education and plan to organize such activities in all schools. 3 editions of CICDE Open Talks conference were organized by the Center for Continuous Electoral Training since 2018. From motivational speeches to scientific studies and research has evolved the 3rd edition of this activity. Young researchers from the universities from Moldova have conducted studies on citizens' participation in electoral processes. The young researchers address topics such as the accessibility in the electoral process, a defined issue in expressing the right to vote. Civic education is also achieved through public lessons and activities conducted in educational institutions across the country, and the Open Doors Day activity within CECT and CCET. Such activities can be organized on request throughout the year or during annual events. Young Voters Day, International Elections Day. If previously we were working mostly with first-time voters from universities and high schools, now we hold such activities for the first grades and even in the kindergartens, as we consider that it's easy to educate and create values, attitudes, and skills than to try to change them. We also have noticed that kids are more involved and more interested in such kind of events. Open Doors activity aims to familiarize young people with the work and responsibilities of electoral bodies and various issues related to electoral process, and to make them to be aware of the importance of participating in elections. We're organizing mock elections, simulation of the CEC meetings, Jeopardy games, and distribute various information. Usually, such events are held within the CEC and CECT premises, but also we conduct them outdoor, inside the exhibition halls or in the Parliament building. For example, on the occasion of the International Democracy Day or Diaspora Day. Door-to-door campaigns are conducted usually during electoral period, but also in the period between elections. CEC representatives and volunteers go to universities, campuses, airport, railway station, bus station, border crossing points, markets, and other places where there is a big concentration of people. Such activities are used to disseminate printed materials, but also offer great opportunity to interact and to be closer to the ordinary citizens. Elections on Road was a large-scale mobile communication campaign which helped CEC members and local officials to communicate face-to-face with citizens and separately with young voters in approximately half of the territorial administrative units of Moldova. This exercise aimed to strengthen the relationship between the electoral management body and citizens. CEC and CCET have made available a series of communication tools, including an information and resource center for the voters, media observers, and our stakeholders. The center facilitates the public access to the information on elections and work of the CEC. It also provides training and communication space for regular people and researchers who are interested in the elections. The center contains a documentary background on multiple media adapted to the user's needs and specific institutions. The CEC Information and Resource Center for the Citizen has a rich collection of the website of the major international organizations, electoral institutions in our countries, domestic and foreign central authorities. Library of CEC and CICDE contains a collection of the handouts, books, resources, but also archives that help CEC representatives in conducting various seminars, participating in national and international conferences. The main purpose of creating CEC and CCET library was to collect all materials published by this institution, make them available to the large public, and also to engage local researchers in this process. And of course, online campaigning. Especially to coronavirus, online presence of CEC and CCET is very important since trends are constantly changing and the internet is gaining momentum, thus becoming a norm. According to the data from January 2020, the internet penetration in Moldova is 76%. Around 40% of total population have at least one account in social media, and 35% are Facebook users. The number of mobile connections in Moldova was equivalent to 108 of the total population. In these regards, CEC and CCET provide information on the official web pages cec.md, votează.md, check.md, as well on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and other platforms. When launching the new and improved version of the above-mentioned web pages in 2018, a range of modern technology and applications were used to facilitate browsing and accessibility, ensuring better security. We place on web pages video spots, video events, memos, electronic version of printed materials, MIFs, infographics, cartoons. Guides and posters are drawn up in Romanian, translated into the language of the national minorities. In addition, we prepare audio version of the easy-to-read books dedicated to people with intellectual disabilities and learning difficulties. Information materials. Moreover, videos are dubbed into Russian, which has the status of interethnic language, and are accompanied by translation into sign language. In order to enhance the visibility of the events held by CEC and CCET, we ensure live transmission of the majority of our events. Streaming and online events helped us previously to reach especially persons from abroad, and also young people. Nowadays, due to the restriction imposed to stop the spread of COVID, this can be one of the safest solutions to communicate with people. Educating young citizens in an active and participatory spirit and enhancing their trust in the authorities involved in the organization of elections and in the electoral process generally is a mission assumed by CEC and CCET. However, in order for things not to be misinterpreted and suspicious, a total synergy must be created between all the actors involved in the electoral process: public authorities, media, civil society, political parties, government, opposition, and informed voters. Given the new global COVID-19 challenges that the 20th century civilization is going through, we are drawn into reviewing the communication agenda achieved through classical methods and showing more flexibility and engagement in the development of digital communication technologies as its maximum. The computer, television, and internet are extraordinary tools when they are being used in moderation and for personal development. The internet, whose importance and use is often disputed, must become a tool through which messages inspire confidence and evoke emotions to motivate the public to take actions and be informed. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Корнелио. Извини, пожалуйста, к сожалению, этот формат встречи не позволяет тебе слышать аплодисменты, которые я чувствую, которые бы были, если бы мы сидели в одном зале. Но, тем не менее, уже, во-первых, прими, пожалуйста, от меня поздравления для тебя и ваших коллег. Очень интересная программа. Спасибо за презентацию. Но у тебя уже также есть два наших коллег, не только поблагодарить тебя, но и задали вопросы. Ричард Содри, первый, сколько я вижу, обратился к тебе. Уже 3. Ну, у тебя есть еще 10 минут, так что, если что, за счет кофе.
Хорошо. Аплодисментов нет, но хорошо, что люди не выключились. Это значит, что хотя бы кто-то слышал мою презентацию. По поводу на русском, на английском. As it relates to the participation of young voters. So if you take voters aged 18 to 25 years, so we have participation at the last parliamentary elections of 8.5%. This is the share from the total number of voters that have participated. If we look on the voters list, we have 326,000 young voters. So if you'll take the percentage share from the young voters included in the voters list that have participated, we have 37.8% of voters of this age that have participated. No, students do not receive school credits, but it's a good initiative. Richard maybe will talk a little bit about this after, if you know more about how this can be done. Okay, to what extent was the outreach program successful in reaching out vulnerable members of the electorate? Of course, when we speak about the Central Electoral Commission, it's challenging to reach all the vulnerable groups. A good example of how this can be achieved, we have organized a small grant program. So we have cooperated with NGOs. We have offered to 10 NGOs that have experience in working with different vulnerable groups. So we have achieved pretty good results in such kind of activity. As relates to the CEC, we mostly address to general public, but of course we are sensitive to gender issues. We are sensitive to ensure the accessibility of people with different types of disabilities. We don't only prepare some materials for them, but we also participate at meetings. But of course, these meetings are facilitated by special NGOs. That is why cooperation is very important when we speak about having great impact for vulnerable groups. Okay, if you're faced with legal nihilism of young voters, how do you deal with it? Legal nihilism, what do you mean? They deny the legislation, or just to understand the question? From Ekaterina. So Georgia, you have special courses, electoral law universities. Our training center, we do not have courses, but we have a master course. So it's not for students, but it's a special course created by our training center. And already now we have the third such kind of course. We have already 2 graduation. Question: how large is the staff in charge of running the CC social media accounts? Well, it's not so large. We would like to have the staff of CC of Georgia. In total, the staff involved in civic education from the Central Electoral Commission, there are 4 people, but they're involved not only in civic education, but also international relations, work with mass media and other electoral stakeholders. In this regards, we have a lot of support from the training center. In the training center, permanently are working 6 people, but if needed, volunteers and trainers are involved. And of course, when we are making some campaigns outside, we can hire some extra staff who produces the visual and cartoons published for social media. It's outsourced done by CEC. Well, some of the products prepared for social media are done by the CEC and the training center. But of course, sometimes we cooperate with specialized companies, but under our guidance and under our request, they can prepare these materials.
Спасибо большое. Если кто-то не успел получить ответ, у нас на то есть еще coffee break, видимо. В двухстороннем порядке можно поговорить. Да, я вижу, тут еще господин доктор Юрий Чукан прислал поздравительный, заслуженный поздравитель. Но, тем не менее, время для нашего круглого стола уже подошло к концу. Аккурат, точно. Как ни странно, никого не надо было подгонять и останавливать. Но это, видимо, преимущество такое.
Арнест, есть еще один вопрос.
Так давайте за счет кофе.
So lovely campaign. Do CEC meet any challenges during the campaign? Well, of course, you meet different kind of challenges. A lot of challenges you meet starting with planning the campaign. You have challenges to find the needed resources, challenges to find the needed time to do this campaign. When you are during the electoral period, you are working under pressure, and of course this is very difficult. So I told already, time and resources. Also, you have challenge to have all materials in time. You have challenge to have the public and also to have them to be open to the messages and to the activities you want to organize. But in order to face all these challenges, you have to be well prepared, to do a very good planning, to identify all the needed stakeholders with which you have to cooperate. And in such conditions, even if you have challenges, they don't become an issue. So if nobody noticed the problems, and only we, the organizers, have seen them, so I consider them that they didn't even were a challenge.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cornelia. And now I'm giving the floor for your announcements to our General Secretary, Rolf.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Arnis. Just I would like to, let's say, connect a little bit and just for one note regarding to the presentation we heard from Tamar and from Corneliu, because if anyone would ask me that please give me an advice that a CEC or management bodies which is let's say maintaining continuously the voters' attention. So my advice would be go to Georgia and to Moldova, because in these two countries there is always something happening between two elections, because sometimes of course there are questions, you are working in the election management bodies, and what are you doing between two elections? There's nothing to do. Then these are the best two examples, Georgia and Moldova. There's something always happening, training, new ideas, information, and so on and so on. So I think this is the best examples for this question, and this is also about the communication. And I also would like to draw your attention what we saw in Cornelius' presentation. They have a strategy. They have a strategy for communication, and it was, I think, the best practice again back to the chairmanship of Yuri Chokan. because then Yuri started to have to setting up strategies for the different part of the work for the CEC. So I think this is also very important to have a strategy. Of course, you can do it by an ad hoc basis, but of course it is always better if you have a strategy. Today, I think it's not so difficult to put together. So from my side also, many thanks to this presentation, and also to the presentation of Hassan, who gave us an overview from the UN perspective as well. And of course, many thanks to Arnis for her excellent moderation.